Again. Okay, it's telling me that I have the recording in progress. Let's see here. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yay!
Yay! Okay, fantastic. Now we can begin. Sorry about that. Welcome, everyone. Today we are going to talk a little bit about a couple of different topics, and I'm going to merge a few things together for you here. This is Master Your Website and Social Media, and we're going to talk also a little bit about some current online trends. So to tell you a little bit about me, my name is Kiersten Hill. My title at Firespring is Director of Nonprofit Solutions. I came to Firespring from the client side. So up until about a year ago when I went to work for Firespring, I have spent the majority of my career as a nonprofit executive. So most recently, I was the Director of Development for the Lincoln Children's Zoo. Prior to that, I was the Executive Director for Big Brothers Big Sisters affiliate in Lincoln. And then for about 10 years before that, I ran an alternative United Way that does workplace giving fundraising for agencies that don't receive United Way funding. Most of those were relatively small shops and have done a lot of different things in the nonprofit sphere. So tells you a little bit about me. Firespring and me, we are both located in the middle of Nebraska. Firespring is located in Lincoln. We have our headquarters there. We also have offices in Omaha, Nebraska, and in Council Bluffs, Iowa. But Firespring has clients in all 50 states in the United States and 10 countries around the world. So we're doing a lot from right here in the middle of everywhere. As a company, Firespring provides strategic guidance that is activated through creative, marketing, printing, and technology solutions. So we have solutions for clients in all four of those areas, and our goal is to help businesses and nonprofits to prosper. As a company, Firespring is Nebraska's first certified B Corporation. So we are really committed to leveraging our people, our products, and our profits to do more good. The way that we do that, we express that is through what we call the power of three. So as a company, Firespring is committed to donating at least 1%. It's usually much more. 1% of our profits, the top line revenue, goes to nonprofit organizations. 2% of our products are donated, and then 3% of our people. So all the full-time employees like myself at Firespring are not only given 8 hours every single month, but we're really expected to use those 8 hours every single month to volunteer for the nonprofit and charitable organizations of our choice. So Firespring's really committed to doing more good. Well, we started when everybody was kind of getting on here, we started talking a little bit about the pandemic. And this statistic really goes to the heart of the beginning of the pandemic. And at the very beginning, 77% of consumers reported at that time that they expected to increase their use of touchless experiences during the pandemic. And then 62% thought that they would probably continue doing so even after the pandemic ends. And what that really means is that digital marketing, and for those of us who are doing fundraising, digital fundraising is no longer really an option for nonprofits. If you want to engage and grow your communities and your donor bases, you're going to have to find ways to stand out in what is now an increasingly crowded online space. And the way that you do that is by creating experiences and telling stories that feel really personal. We're going to talk a little bit about how to do that. So because we're merging a couple of different topics together today, I'm going to give you an overview and a couple of details from each of those webinars. And then if you would like to expand your learning on any of these particular areas, you can reach out to me and I can let you know which of those webinars you might want to attend. So this is combining the ABCs of an effective website, our Social Media 102 for Nonprofits course, and our 2022 marketing trends. So it's going to give you a brief overview of each of those areas. So we'll talk about why it is that nonprofits struggle, particularly related to their websites, the ABCs of creating an effective website, and then I'm going to just give a brief introduction to the Social Media 102 for nonprofits, and then we'll talk about some trends. I will wrap up with some action steps, so some really specific things that you guys can take right away and implement, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A. So if you happen to be tweeting today, you can use the hashtag powered by purpose, and you can tag us at Firespring. If you don't know what tweeting is or how to use a hashtag, then I recommend the Social Media 101 course that we do. And if you reach out to me, I'd be happy to get you a recording or get you signed up for the next 101 course that we do. So why is it that nonprofits struggle when it comes to their websites? The primary reason is that 81% of nonprofit websites are designed for $1,000 or less. It's really it's emblematic of that nonprofit mantra of trying to do more with less. In fact, the average nonprofit, because they're spending $1,000 or less, also starts over on their website about every 2 years. And so you get into this constant stream of, creation, and you're not then able to really get any kind of a positive foothold with your website. The other challenge that a lot of nonprofits have is that they tend to send visitors away to engage as opposed to bringing them to their website. So it might be you need to opt in for an email, or you need to register for an event. So we're going to send you to Eventbrite, or you need to look at a video. So we're going to send you to YouTube. You need to make a donation. We're going to send you to Network for Good. Whatever it is, we're tending to send people off of sites as opposed to developing and designing nonprofit websites that bring people to the site and keep them there. So what you want to do is to capture people's attention through Facebook or through a search engine, a blog post, email marketing, and everything should drive people to your website. And you want to look for a website that will allow you to complete all of the things that a donor wants to do to engage with you in an online world. You want to do all of that on your website. So there are some ways that you can increase the amount of time that people are spending on your site and the way that they're engaging. So we're going to talk about the ABCs of a great website. The first thing that it has to do is you need to have a website that adapts to mobile devices. So mobile and tablet devices accounted for 53% of internet usage and exceeded desktops for the first time worldwide in October of 2019. Well, we all know what happened after October of 2019, and I have no idea what this statistic is right now. I actually need to go look it up because I cannot imagine that number has gone down. I am certain that most people are now interacting with websites via some sort of a mobile device or platform. And so you have to have a responsive device. And in fact, not only does it help people to engage with you, but it can also double your giving if you are using some sort of platform where people can donate to you, not only on a desktop but also on a mobile device. You want to make sure that it's easy to read on any device, that it can be found, and that it'll really look amazing everywhere. The other thing is that in May of 2016, Google began prioritizing search results to websites that are mobile friendly. And if you're not sure if your website is mobile friendly, you can go to google.com. There's this complicated email. I'm sure if you just go to google.com and you test, mobile friendly website tool, it'll take you to that test. But Google said that if your website isn't mobile friendly, that you would no longer end up in the top of the search results on Google. And so that's been a really important thing. And that's part of the reason that it's super important for your website to adapt to mobile. The other thing to keep in mind is that Google just recently, within the last year, announced some new priorities that go to user experience. And so if your website Also does not have a good user experience, then Google is not going to prioritize you to the top of search engines anymore for that reason either. So it's also important to have a partner or a good web provider who's going to be able to help advise you on how to make your website adaptable. The next thing is branding. So when employees and volunteers embrace a common brand, then they're creating this cohesion and a focus that reinforces shared values. What you want is you want to make sure that your branding is doing three things: that it illustrates your mission. So when someone looks at the brand and the way that you portray the brand, that they understand who you are. Your branding should demonstrate professionalism, and it should gain confidence among potential supporters. So if you have a brand that looks sort of like clip art and it hasn't been updated in years, there are good reasons to do that go just beyond like wanting it to look better. It really does, it goes to the heart of demonstrating that professionalism and gaining confidence among potential supporters. So if you have maybe board members or other volunteers who've been dragging their feet about making updates, you can share with them how important it is. The other thing is that you want to make sure the branding of your website matches your overall organizational branding. Think about your website as your storefront on the World Wide Web. And it's really the first impression that potential supporters are going to have of your organization. Nearly all consumers, about 97% of consumers, use online media when they're researching services or entities in their local communities. And so it could be that they're going to have a personal face-to-face interaction with you, but chances are they're going to start at your website before they ever begin to interact with you personally. And so it's really important that your website is modern, that it's up to date, that it's inviting, and that what's inside your website, so the pages and the content, match the image that you're putting forth on the outside. And so it's really important that you, have a nice, well-organized web presence. The average person has about an 8-second attention span when it comes to websites. So it reminds me of the Finding Nemo movie, right? Where Dory the fish has no short-term memory. That's sort of what it's like when new people are coming to your website. They have this really limited attention span, and you have 8 seconds in order to get them really hooked in and to become a part of what you've got going on there. Donors also want to know that they're supporting a well-run professional organization that is making an impact, and good branding is going to help you make sure that they're seeing that. The next thing that you need, the C in the ABCs, is a content management system. Now, Firespring, as I mentioned in the introduction, Firespring has a website tool for nonprofits. It's really fantastic, and that was my primary exposure to Firespring before I became an employee here, was as a website client. If you're not going to use Firespring, there are other, great tools out there that you can use to create nonprofit websites. But the key is that you need to make sure that you have the ability to update your website content yourself. The days of having a gatekeeper or your board president's nephew who went to college and he set it up, and now that he's in college, he's harder to find and it's harder to make updates. Those things just don't work anymore. You really need to be able to have at your fingertips the ability to update your website and to change the content. And so there are, again, lots of great tools that are out there that can help you, but it should be point and click simple. So, something where you can click on the website management, select your content. I always say with a Firespring website, if someone has the basic understanding of how to use Microsoft Word, insert a picture in and make the changes to the paragraphs, you can handle the Firespring back end of the website. And that's really your goal, is you want to have a website that you can make those changes to. The next piece of a great website is donation tools. And you really want to have the ability to take donations on your website. The ability to take donations on your site, there's some really good financial reasons for it. It increases the amount that people are going to donate if you're not sending them off, which then improves your fundraising. It simplifies your payments with donations and payment processing. So you definitely want to make sure that whatever website tool you are using, you have the ability to collect donations on your site without sending people off site. Nope, that next one's on recurring payments. I can't remember what the statistic is, but there's a statistic, I think it's like 57% of users who are taken to a third-party site to complete a donation will abandon the donation process before they complete it. So if you have someone on your site and you're sending them to a third-party site like PayPal, even PayPal or something else like that to complete their donation, more than half of them are going to just abandon the donation before they give. So it's really important to have it right there on your site. If you absolutely can't do that, I recommend that you include a note on your donation page where, you're going to say link here, click here to donate. I recommend that you put a note on your site that explains to people where they're going. So have a note that says, you will be taken to our partner, Give Good, and on Give Good, you will complete your donation. This is a valued and trusted partner of organization XYZ, and you can feel secure in completing your donation on that platform. So if you can't incorporate your donation into your page, at least let people know what's coming, so that they know that it's not some sort of a glitch in the system, they're not being phished or something like that. They understand what's coming. The best practice is just being able to complete it all on your website. But if you absolutely can't do that, then make sure that you make that change. Or make that addition, that little paragraph addition. So the next thing is that recurring payments are a really, really great thing to be able to offer people who are donating online. Donors who agree to a recurring gift will donate 42% more on average than those individuals who make a one-time gift. So chances are the gift itself may be smaller than your average gift, but because it's reoccurring on a regular basis, you're over the lifetime average of the gifts, you will receive more from those reoccurring donors. So having the ability to accept recurring donations on your website is also a terrific tool for increasing donations. The next thing that you want to have is event registration. So the number one reason that people will visit your organization's website is to register for events. I thought that was an interesting statistic, but it's fantastic to be able to have donation or event registration on your site. A couple of benefits of that: it's obviously open 24 hours a day. It doesn't matter if you're in the office or not, somebody can register. Ideally, it's built into your content management system. You want something that's flexible, takes payments online. You also want to be able to capture and store and export that attendee information. You want to be able to sell, tickets, tables, sponsorships, all of those things online, and to automate as much of that event registration piece as possible. So if you're out there looking for a new site, you definitely want to look for a site that allows you to do event registration at the same time. The next thing is fresh content. So fresh content is going to be a critical piece of having a great website. And fresh content impacts your website's vitality. And really the vitality is all about having a website that captivates it retains, and it engages your audience. All of those things are vitality. It's that perception of the freshness of your content. And you want to make sure that you have a website that looks as though it's engaging, and that it's been, touched and updated and cared for recently. Outdated content will actually reflect negatively on your organization. So this is a really good example. This is a business where we went in and redid their website just a couple of years ago. But this was their website before we redid it. Down on the bottom left-hand side, you can see that they had newsletters on their site from 2012 and 2013. I will tell you, we didn't redo their website until I think 2019 or 2020. When you have this outdated information on your site, what it's telling people is that your organization is outdated, or that you haven't been to update your website in a number of years. And if they see that and they think you're not updating your website, then the website is no longer trustworthy. And as a result, your organization is also no longer seen as being as trustworthy. So if you have outdated content on your website, you either need to update the content or delete the content that dates your website. Because not having fresh content and not having good vitality is actually really detrimental to what you're trying to accomplish. So control and access are going to be the keys to vitality. So being able to update your own content management system and control, what's on your site is key to making sure that you can have a good site that's up to date. All right, the next thing that I want to give you an overview on is social media. So a lot of the statistics that we are taking these from are from a social media research entity. Oberlo is the name of the group that does this social media research. So daily active social media users, if you wonder if social media is important, here are the statistics. So 3.5 billion social media users are active on social media in a given day. And that equates to about 45% of the population. Facebook remains the most widely used social media platform. So roughly 2/3 of American adults, or 68% of American adults, now report that they are Facebook users. So it is more critical than ever that you have social media and that you have a strategy to make sure that you're putting the right information out into social media. I gave you the statistic of, 8 seconds, I think it was, for people to capture their interest on a website. They say that it is even less in social media. Like 3 to 5 seconds is what you have to capture someone's attention on social media. And but that's also where people are. So you need to have some sort of a social media plan. So what I pulled from our Social Media 102 presentation for you are these really cool graphics that show when it is the best time to post information on each of these platforms. I also sent a copy of the PDF of these slides to Lauren, and so she can send those out to you if you want a copy of them. But if you are looking at Facebook, the very best day of the week to post on Facebook is Wednesdays. Who knows, right? But they've done the research on this. So Wednesdays at 11 a.m. or between 1 and 2. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays are the best times overall, and morning seems to be much better. The worst times for posting on Facebook are weekends or weekdays after 5 o'clock. So this also tells me that pretty much everyone who's on Facebook is scrolling during work. Because if you're scrolling on, if you're posting on the weekends or after 5 o'clock, people are typically more engaged with their families and spending less time on social media. So a little bit about Facebook. Next, we're going to look at Twitter. The best times to post on Twitter are Wednesdays and Fridays at 9 a.m. So the best time is sometime between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Wednesdays and Fridays. Saturdays are going to be the worst days to post on Twitter. I think unless you're a college athletic activity of some kind, then I think Saturdays are your hot spot. But for most nonprofits, I'm going to say it's going to be Wednesday or Friday. Next is LinkedIn. LinkedIn, it has a little bit different. There's some wider times that open up once you get to LinkedIn. Wednesdays and Thursdays are going to be the best days, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and noon. So people are checking it first thing in the morning or over their lunch hour, 9 a.m. or 1 to 2 on Thursdays, 9 a.m. on Fridays. So LinkedIn, again, I think the key is, LinkedIn just definitely needs to be during the week. The worst day to post on LinkedIn is on a Sunday. So, afternoon or evening, it doesn't matter. Sundays are the worst days. But think about those times when people might be taking a break from work. So, either first thing in the morning when people are just coming in and getting ready, or, over their lunch hour. Those are going to be your primary times that you're going to want to post on LinkedIn. And then the last one we're going to cover is Instagram. So the best time to post on Instagram is Wednesdays, or Monday, Tuesday, Friday. So sometime during the day, during the day, and 11 a.m. or 2 p.m. The worst time is going to be on Sundays again. So the general takeaway from all of these is you want to be posting during the week and during business hours, and not posting on the weekends. So some fun little statistics for you on when to post. 74% of consumers reply that they will rely on social networks to influence buying decisions. And the same goes for nonprofit decisions as well. So 74% of your consumers are going to go to your website, but they're also going to visit your social networks before they decide if you're an organization that they want to volunteer for or you're an organization that they want to donate to. That's why these, these online tools are so important for fundraising and development, is because you have to build up, that brand and that reputation, because they really do influence the decisions that people have when they're making choices about who to get involved with, where to volunteer, and where to give their money. The next thing we're going to talk about are some trends for the coming year. They may be trends that have been going for the last 12 to 18 months. And these are more specific to marketing, but you'll see there's lots of intersections with fundraising as well. So the first trend is personalization. The next we're going to talk briefly about is storytelling, then influencer marketing, just those three. So those are the three I'm going to talk about. I think when we do this, the fully expanded version of this webinar, there are a couple of others that we talk about, but I think these are the three most important trends to look at. So personalization is really one-to-one marketing. It's marketing that is going to use data and digital technology to be able to deliver individualized messaging to current and potential supporters. So you think, okay, well, that's great. What do I personalize, right? Kiersten, tell me how this works. So here are some examples of the kinds of things that you can personalize to have a better rapport with potential donors. And I think about this a lot when I think about email newsletters, for instance. If you're sending any kind of an email newsletter or solicitation, any kind of communication, personalization will increase your response rates. So things like their name. So instead of going to just, dear friend or, dear supporter, if you use their name, you're going to increase the results. Anything that you might know about their giving history. Are they a monthly donor? Are they a donor who gives to you on an annual basis? Maybe you know what their most recent gift size was, and you can kind of personalize the message based on how much they normally give. Are they a lapsed donor? So maybe you're sending an email communication just to people who haven't given to you in the last 2 years, trying to re-engage them. So using something else that you know about them can really make a difference in how you're communicating with them. Demographics. So do you know their age, their location? Are you emailing them to, wish them a happy birthday? Their profession, their gender, those are some things that you might want to tailor your messaging for. Their program interests. Maybe they really, really like the program where you put out, seasonal bird feeders, and that's the program they want to support. Or maybe they're really interested in clean water, or maybe it's some sort of a recreational activity that they're interested in. What is their main program interest area, and how can you tailor your messaging toward their interest in whichever program they're targeting? The next is audience segment. So you can have different communications with your board members versus donors versus volunteers or staff or program participants, members, whatever it is. You can include that piece of information as well. And then finally, the overall goals you might want to share, or maybe your pain points, what the motivations are, buying patterns. There are all kinds of things that you can use to segment your donors so that you are telling them stories and information that is really going to pertain specifically to them, and it's going to be customized and personalized for them. If you don't have any of this data and you're thinking, gosh, that would be nice, but how am I going to know these things about my donors? Then I love the idea of conducting surveys. So, send a survey, and this could be an electronic survey through something like SurveyMonkey, or maybe you want to do a printed survey and mail it. But send out a survey to your donors and begin gathering as much of this information as you can, so that you're prepared and ready. The next piece of trends is storytelling. And I think some trends are going to come and go. Part of the reason that I chose these three is because I believe that these three trends are trends right now, but I think they're here to stay. And I think they're going to change the way that we communicate with our prospective audiences. So we have an entire webinar just on storytelling. So if you're interested in learning more, you definitely want to check out that expanded version. But storytelling it's really an art form, and it's the art of sharing narratives in order to engage your audience, to deliver messages and information and knowledge in a really subtle but entertaining way. And storytelling, there's a good reason. There are actually several good reasons to do storytelling, but there are some important economic reasons. So storytelling is 22 times more memorable than facts. So people are going to be able to remember, and as a result, reshare and talk about and really internalize your stories, as opposed to just giving them a list of facts. The other thing is that 56% of nonprofit followers on mobile and social networks report that they are going to take further action, primarily making a donation after reading a compelling story that has been published by a nonprofit. So storytelling has an economic impact. There are good reasons to tell narrative stories. The other thing to keep in mind is that our brains as human beings are naturally hardwired to think in terms of story. So if you think about, going to maybe like a lecture, or sitting in a class, maybe when you were a student, and your mind tends to drift and you're thinking about other things, because the information that's being presented to you isn't being presented in a narrative arc. When you go to a movie and you sit in front of that screen, I think about the Marvel movies. My son went to Batman last night and it was 2 hours and 59 minutes. I can't get him to do anything for 3 hours, but he sat in the movie theater for 3 hours and watched an entire movie, right? And your brain doesn't wander once. It's because the brain is automatically wired to think in terms of that story arc. And so this is a fantastic tool for engaging your donors, your volunteers, constituents, community. If you take nothing else away from today's presentation, this is slide 47 when you get a copy of the slides. This is a list of places where you can find stories and you can tell stories about your organization. So the first place is your founding. I've worked with hundreds of nonprofits over my 20 years in nonprofit work. And I have never heard of two organizations that have the exact same founding. Every organization's founding is different. Why someone was called to the mission of this work, and why they cared so much about it that they established an organization that does this work. That is going to be unique to every organization. The stories of the people that you serve, or the environment that you serve, whatever area it is, or if you're an animal welfare organization, the animals that you protect, the habitats, whatever it is, but stories about those entities. This is also where I put in a plug for ethical storytelling. If you're not a human service organization, the ethical piece of the storytelling may not be quite as applicable for you, but particularly for those entities who are doing a lot of human services work, I think it's really important to make sure that you're telling stories in an ethical manner, that you have full approval and authority from the individuals who you're telling the stories about, that they know that you are going to tell stories about them and what you're going to say, and that they approve that. There is also a website called ethicalstorytelling.com. You can go on and take a pledge to do ethical storytelling. I'm a huge proponent of making sure that you and your whole organization are committed to ethical storytelling. I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, and it's sometimes overlooked. Next is your donors and your funders. I love telling stories about donors, because why does someone care so much about the work that you do that they are willing to give you their money? Telling that story can motivate and encourage others to join. And the same goes for volunteers, because time is sometimes more valuable than money. And so telling the story about why a volunteer cares so much about your work that they give their time in order to help your organization. What about your staff and your board? Every staff is different. Every board is unique. Why do they want to give their time and lend their name to your effort? Your sponsors and your vendors. If you have an event sponsor, why are they excited about being part of the event? And all of those things, you're telling those stories with the goal to bring other people along and to expand your network. And finally, your community. How is your organization impacting your community as a whole? So there's lots, there's 7 examples, and there are probably dozens and dozens of stories in each of those examples. And here are 12 ways that you can up your storytelling game. So get something worth writing about. We just talked about that. Keep the main point the main point. This is my plug for clarity and brevity. So don't, tell a story that is about 4 different people and how each of their lives have been impacted. Tell a story about one person, and then maybe you can tell a story, tell a connecting story about the other people, but try and keep things more concise and focused. Do not, make it that, if you think about the movie, like the Jason Bourne movies, right? They're all about Jason Bourne finding his identity. It is not like, I want to find out who I am. I someday want to get married. I want to finish my MBA, and maybe I'm going to get a cat. That Jason Bourne does not have those thoughts. Like, he is singularly focused on finding out his identity. And you want to do the same thing when you're telling stories. You want to keep the main point the main point. You want to find real life anecdotes that can tap into emotions. Your stories should be about developing some kind of emotion. I personally think that the best emotion that you can give people is hope. people sometimes say, well, gosh, I don't want to make people sad, or, I don't want to downplay, how important this issue is. Well, no, but the best emotion that you can really give people is hope, because everybody wants to capture a piece of that emotion. Ask your social networks to share. So when you're putting out a story, make sure that you have a plan and that you're asking, your board members, your staff, asking people to share the stories with their own networks. You can also take one story and tell it several different ways. So maybe you write a story and you put the whole story on your website, but then you tell part of the story in your email, you tell part of the story on your Instagram, tell part of the story on your Facebook, and then it says for the entire story, visit our website. So you can break up a single story in multiple ways. You can interview people involved. So if you don't have time, you're thinking to yourself, I don't have time to write a story. Then write 6 questions and send those 6 questions to someone and say, will you answer these questions for a story that I would like to write on you? And then they're going to respond to those in writing. And then someone has essentially written your story for you, because all you have to do is an intro and a conclusion and pull those paragraphs together. And it's much less arduous than writing the story on your own. Or you can tap into experts. Do you know of someone else who would be willing to write a story for your social media or for your website? Make sure that you're using powerful images. That's one of the great things about Instagram, is you can't post on Instagram unless it has an image. So make sure that all of your stories have accompanying images that enhance them. Compel people to act. So your story should have some sort of a call to action. What is it that you want people to do? Make sure that you're telling them that and getting them to act on it. Create a plan for follow-up. So you've told this great story. Now, are you going to follow up via another email? Are you going to follow up via, social media, or, what's your plan? Make sure that when you're telling a story and putting a good story out there in the world, that you have a plan for it. Proofread everything. I'm bad at proofreading my own things. So when I write things, I tend to write it, and ideally I come back the next day and reread it again. And then I move things around and I catch things that I didn't notice before. And then if I really have enough time, I'll even send it to somebody else and have somebody else look at it, because I have a really hard time sometimes finding my own mistakes. And then make storytelling part of your nonprofit organization's culture. I think it's really important to have a culture of storytelling within your organization. When I was at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we used to start every staff meeting and board meeting with we called it a mission minute. And we would tell a story about a match or something that had happened. And we made sure that we kept that focus on who we were serving, why we were doing the work that we were doing, and we made that regular storytelling process just a habit and a part of every meeting we had. So the final trend that I want to talk about is influencers. And influencer marketing really takes the idea of a celebrity endorsement and it mashes it up with this modern day content marketing strategy. And it can help you to advocate for your nonprofit, and it can also help you to expand your reach. There are lots of levels of influencers. So you have a nano influencer is going to be like 1,000 to 10,000 followers. Your micro influencers are going to be 10 to 50,000, mid tiers 50 to 500,000, all the way up to your mega influencers. So those are the, Kim Kardashians of the world who have millions and millions of followers. They say that the sweet spot for influencers is really in that micro to mid tier range. I will say that I think those are great. Those are great influencers, but I also really encourage nonprofits, in particular small nonprofits, to look more toward those nano influencers. And nano influencers don't have to be someone who has like a lifestyle blog. But maybe it's the person that that likes your organization and they have 3,000 connections on LinkedIn, or they have 2,500 friends on Facebook. And every time they're posting, they're getting a lot of engagement and people interact with them and communicate with them. And lots of people, like their posts and comment and engage with them. Those can also be nano influencers. And if you can attract one of those folks to be an advocate on your behalf, maybe it is sending them a free ticket to your event or inviting them to come take a tour of your office or a project you've just completed, and asking them to share that with their followers. I think there are ways that you can use small influencers, especially in your community or in the community that you're doing work with, to really help spread the word. And so I think when you're thinking about influencers, don't automatically think about the huge, millions of followers influencers, but think more about the local people in your community who fill that influencer role. So here are your action steps. First of all, look over your website and check those ABCs. Make sure that your website is doing all of those things. And if not, then you want to develop a plan for, well, either way, actually, you want to develop a plan for maintaining the vitality on your site. Identify your best social media channels where you best going to communicate with people, and you can make a plan for when you're going to post there. Research local influencers in your area and make a plan to reach out to even one a quarter or a couple a year. If you're not doing anything right now with influencers as advocates, if you said, I'm just going to reach out to one person, that's taking a step forward. Ensure that your nonprofit is telling compelling stories so that your followers have a reason to engage with you. And finally, keep learning. You can attend free webinars from Firespring. If you go to firespring.com/webinars, you can learn a lot about us. We also have a great partnership with the folks at Nonprofit Hub, and Nonprofit Hub has a ton of great free webinars and webinar content as well. So if you're feeling buried and you don't know where to start because you're doing all of these things, events and fundraising and IT and admin, you're probably writing paychecks and all the things. At Firespring, we recommend that you start with your website and you let your website do the heavy lifting, because a good website can dig you out from some of those tasks. A great website can have turnkey landing pages, email marketing automation, event registration, content management system, all the things that can really be helpful. And at Firespring, we're always available to help with any of these things. So nonprofit websites, marketing, printing, strategic guidance, we do all of it. Again, you're going to get a copy of these slides, but if you are interested in looking at a new website, we do have a special offer. So 2 months of free website if you schedule a discovery at firespring.com/discovery now through April 30th. If you get started with a new Firespring website, you can get your first 2 months for free. And firespring.com/webinars is where you'll find that list of upcoming topics. So anybody have questions about the presentation or anything I can answer today? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Kiersten, to the influencers, I actually reached out to a few friends that I think have pretty good, I've got to go back now and look at their numbers now that you told me to do that. But I kind of reached out to them and said, hey, would you like to help us by being a social media influencer? And I don't think I was able to explain well enough what it was I wanted them to do. So when I am reaching out to them, how do I approach it? What am I asking them for?
Sure. I think what you're asking them for, so first of all, I would create a packet, so to speak. And it doesn't have to be anything super formal, but I would create a packet and I would explain, here's what we're wanting you to do. Share this information with your audience. Talk occasionally or share posts from our social media. Talk about the reasons why you support this organization and ask others to join you. The other thing that you could do is write samples for them. So here is a sample Facebook post, a sample Instagram post, a sample tweet, whatever platform they're most active in, prepare for them a couple of examples of things that they could do. So, here's an example of wording you might use if you share one of our posts, or here's an example of wording you might use for a post on your own. Give them access to content like photos. So if you have photos, set up like a Google Dropbox, or a Dropbox or like a Google folder, and give them access where they can get great photos from you, so that instead of them having to go out and search and source their own photos, everything is there. And I would do a regular communication with them. So it doesn't have to be, every month or anything like that, but maybe every 6 weeks, you send them an email and give them an update on what's happening, and ask them if they would, share on their networks. So the key with influencers is influencers are typically really busy people. And if you just ask them something kind of nebulous, they don't quite know where to start with it. But if you give them examples, then that, I think, helps them be prepared and equipped to feel like they know what they're doing. And then, it'll help them, just be ready to do it. Then ideally, they do it a few times and they go, oh yeah, this is no big deal. And then you don't have to spoon feed them as much. But in the beginning, you really do have to lay it out for folks. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Any other questions? Okay. Well, please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. If you email hello@firespring.com, that will eventually get to me. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I post about 3 times a week on LinkedIn, and I've started doing sort of series. So last week was donor stewardship. I think I'm going to keep that topic for this coming week as well. So if you're interested, go check out those LinkedIn posts, and you can also drop into my inbox on LinkedIn as well. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer those for you. So
thank you, Kiersten, for presenting today. What a wealth of knowledge. Thank you.
You are very welcome. I'm always happy to do it, and I'm happy to answer questions anytime and share. And hopefully, we'll see you guys on another Firespring webinar sometime. So, yeah. And thanks, Lauren. If you guys, I'll go ahead and take off. Let you guys chat a little bit. And if you have anything or need anything from me, again, don't hesitate to reach out.